Okay, so I am making a video here talking about basically Lunar Magic. So this is the editor for Super Mario World, and this editor, the guy who created it, Fushoya or Fosoya, however you say it, this guy spent like 15 years working on this. I only wish it was a homebrew editor. If this were a homebrew editor, then I could make games all day on it, but it's not. It's a hacking editor. And so anyway, and apparently from what I understand, there's no homebrew editor that exists. So I'm going to, I don't know everything about this editor, but I'm going to try to just go through some of the basic ideas that are in this, because this is very well suited for me as a video game designer. So anyway, I'm going to be recording off of my screen because it's just easy for me to do that. I don't like recording software. So anyway, so we're going to go up here and we're going to zoom in. And as you can see right here, it says file, right? So you get a load of options when you hit file. So you can open up the ROM, and we're actually going to do that right now. So I'm going to open up this ROM, and this is my Ninja game that I'm working on, which is basically going to be like a homebrew, only it's not a homebrew. But anyway, so let's look at these options, okay? We have, when you go to File, you can open the ROM, right? You can open the level number. So in Super Mario World, there's a bunch of levels. There's like 500 levels. You can choose to open up which one you want. I don't really know what level address is. You can save the ROM. Let's see here. One really cool thing that I love about this is that Super Mario World is built into files, okay? Super Mario World has a bunch... I'm sorry, let me take that back. Super Mario World has a bunch of levels, okay? There's like 500 levels, okay? You can save a level to a file. You can export it, and then you can open that level file up with another version of Lunar Magic or whatever, or with another ROM, and do that. So one thing it does is, if you are creating a level, you can export a level to a file and then save that and then re-import that level back in. I cannot tell you how wonderful that is, because let's say you're editing a level and you screw something up, okay? And you don't know how it originally was. Well, if you have a backup file of that level, you can load that level back in and you don't have to create it, or you can see how it originally was. If you have a ROM that you're working with and something happens to the ROM and gets corrupted, but you saved your levels, or you could possibly even save your levels if you have a corrupted ROM, then when you start a new ROM, you can import those levels back in. So if you can do saving levels to files, exporting them and importing them, that would be amazing. Okay, let's see what else is in here. Graphics. There's a way to extract the graphics. You can extract the graphics to files, bin files that you can use with YYCHR. Okay, so in some of these options right here, graphics, there's regular graphics, and then there's something called EX graphics. Of course, this is just specific to Super Mario World. EX graphics are just additional graphics that you can put into your game. The person who made this editor made it so that you can import tons of extra graphics into Super Mario World that were not technically meant to be there. Another thing that Lunar Magic has is each level has its own palette, okay, color palette. And what you can do is you can export a palette to a file and then import it back in. So you can export levels and import levels. You can export palettes and import palettes. Those are excellent. Let me see here. Levels. Let's see here. You can import, export, clear the level. Lunar Magic also has a built-in emulator. Okay, I actually don't use the built-in emulator, but it has a built-in emulator that you can use. Then it has ROM expansions. So you can expand the ROM up to 4 megabytes. It actually automatically expands the ROM as you edit the game. I mean, this is a very intelligent program. There's also some options here for SA1. Okay, you can expand to 8 megabytes for SA1. I've never used that though. Restore, you can create a patch from Lunar Magic. Let's see here. There's all kinds of advanced things. Restore the ROM to the previous state. I've never used that. There's some type of button that says scan ROM right here. I've never used that either. Recent files. So there's some, you can pick recent files that you've used. Let me see here. Edit. So let's look at the edit menu. Edit layer 1, edit layer 2, edit sprites mode. So in Super Mario World, I think there's 3 different layers, but not every level supports those layers because there's different level modes that you can choose. But anyway, you can switch back and forth to different layers, okay? And then there's of course a sprite layer. A lot of these options are actually in the buttons that you'll see. Cut, copy, paste, delete, insert manual. I think you can insert things manually, like custom sprites. In fact, that's how you have to insert custom sprites, is you have to do them manually. Then of course there's ordering. Okay, there's certain ordering that's possible. So whenever you have tiles, there's priority layers, right? There's the front, back, forward, backwards, whatever. You can have some objects that are in front of others or have priority. Sometimes you might want a sprite to be behind a graphic tile, but then sometimes you want a graphic tile to be in front of a sprite. You can do it all different types of ways. Object size, don't think I've ever used that. View, let's see here. Of course, this is probably going to be a much longer video, but doesn't matter. Layer 1, layer 2, so you can view all of you can turn on and off the different various layers. Sprite hex data, screen exits, there's boundaries, there's certain screen boundaries that's probably specific to Super Mario World. Game view screen, yeah, so if you hit this game view screen, you'll get apparently an image of what the viewable screen is. There's something called tile grid, and that means that you can look at everything as a 16 by 16 tile grid. Now this is an amazing option right here. There's actually a zoom feature. You can zoom in, and you can zoom in 100, 200, 300, 400, 600, 800%. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to zoom in. I don't think I use the 800, but you never know when you're building a game how much you need to zoom in to see something. There might be 1 pixel that's off or something. Typically the 100, 200, 300 is good enough for me, but I cannot tell you how amazing this zoom option is. And we'll actually do that. Well, we won't do that right now. We'll do that a little bit later. Level entrance, secondary entrance, there's an animation option. One thing that you can do is you can view all of the different animation frames that are in your level editor. For example, you can turn the animation on or off of animated tiles in your level editor. A lot of these down here are specific to Super Mario World. Like, for example, there's an off and on switch where tiles change, and so you can view the tiles in their on position or off position. So there's an off and on switch option because of course the level design changes depending on whether something is on or off a switch. So let's see here. Again, some of these options in the file menu here, some of these options, they are also buttons too. There's add objects, add sprites, palette. There's an 8x8 editor. There's a 16 by 16 editor. Then there's all kinds of very special stuff. Super graphics bypass, it's extra graphics. Then there's the layer 3 stuff. Animation things, entrances and exits. There's certain properties. properties in the header, like if you want to make it a water level or whatever. Music settings. There's general options. This has the ability to use fast ROM addressing. There's different compression options too for the thing, and there's also some help contents thing. But anyway, so let's try to talk about the different buttons now. Okay, I'm going to try to just focus on this upper top screen right here, because this will make the most sense. Okay, so basically if you click this right here, this little button right here with the gravel, this little terrain button, this is layer 1, the second one is layer 2. This option doesn't, this level does not have layer 2, and then there's the sprite layer. So for example, if I have the sprite button pressed and I go to try to move this tile around or to select this tile will not select because I'm in sprite mode. But if I click the terrain button and I drag and try to highlight something, I then can move around this tile. Okay? So, those are the first 3 buttons. Now this next button right here, this is your block button. If you open it up, there's a window that pops up. Okay? And in this window, you get all of these different options for all of your different blocks. Okay, you get a big list of blocks. And you can alternatively change this to another type of list that looks like this. And so you can look at all of these graphics over here. And so what these are is these are blocks that you can place in your level. Like for example, here is a, and I'll turn the animation on. Here is a berry. Okay, sorry. Okay, so right here there is a, I can select things. This is a berry I'm selecting right here. Okay, I left click to select the berry, and then if I right click, the berry shows up in the level. Okay, and I can drag and drop, or I can expand this guy and make him as big as I want or as small as I want. Of course, there's a certain size to this. But basically, that's what's happening here. You have this, let me zoom out just a little bit. Basically, you have this window. You have a bunch of different options to pick from of different graphics. And you're basically just clicking on graphics and then throwing them into a level. Okay, I choose this brown block right here. I'm throwing this into the level. There it is. Okay, so this window that popped up was an add objects window. Okay, so, and that was this button right here that I clicked. So I can make this window go away, and then I can add in sprites. So when I click the little Yoshi guy right here, I get a little window that pops up, and now I got a bunch of sprites to pick from. So these are all the standard sprites, and I can go through this and just pick a bunch of sprites. When I see a sprite that I want, like for example, there's a Charge and Chuck. If I find a sprite that I want, I go into sprite mode, which is this button right here with the shell, and then I right click and I click the guy into the level editor. Okay, so there's basically a block editor which allows you to place blocks, and then there's a sprite window which allows you to place sprites in your level, and you can put this guy wherever you want. Okay, so we went over these 2. We've gone over the first 5. Okay. And I can delete this guy if I want to. There he is, he's deleted. So if we move on over, there's something called an 8x8 graphics editor. And I don't know if I know much about this, but I do know that you can edit things on the 8x8 level. Okay. So here's another important button. This is called the 16x16 tile map editor. And even though there was an add objects or add, graphics tiles button, this is where you define the properties of the graphics tiles. And so I'm going to make this just a little bit tinier so you can see what's going on here. And so basically, this window is not about clicking objects and then pasting them into my level. What this does is this defines, you can pick something and set that block's palette. You can flip the tile horizontally or vertically, and you can set priority. And you can also give it certain properties. Okay, so for example, this is a door right here. Okay, if I click the door, I can flip this graphic over the X. I can also flip it over the Y. I can set palettes. So for example, I can give it the 0 palette. Okay, and I made it blue. I can give it the first palette, and it makes it weird. So I can pick and choose any tile, and I can give it any color palette that I want. I think it was on 6. Yeah. I can also set its priority on or off. So if priority is on, then all of a sudden it's going to show up. This tile is going to have a higher priority than it might show up over a sprite. These 4 little numbers here are the 8x8 characteristics. And I forgot exactly what these do. But anyway, then there's something called act as. Basically, there are so many blocks in Super Mario World, like a block that's completely has no interaction with Mario, or a solid block, or a vine block that you can climb on, or a water block. So there's all these different blocks in Super Mario World, and they have different properties. What this act as setting here, what this thing does is that, let's say I made a new block and I want it to be a water block, have those water properties. So I make a new block and then I set its act as settings equal to, for example, water here is 0, okay? So if I wanted to make a new block, okay, I had some new graphic in here, I could just make the act as settings as 0, and that new block will act exactly like water. So yeah, and in this area, you can click on blocks and copy them and paste them into kind of like this clipboard area. And basically, this is all of your available blocks. So all of these pages right here are all of the, of course, there's tons of them. There's tons of different pages in here. These are basically all of the blocks that you have to use to make your game. And so you can pick each one and you can, set its palette, set its act as settings, if it's solid, not solid. You can flip it, the X and the Y, you can do all those different things to it. And you can also create these at the 8x8 level. So for example, I just clicked on 8x8 mode, and as you can see in 16, well, damn it. In 16 by 16 mode, you have this big 16 by 16 square right here. But when you're in 8x8 mode, you have a tiny little square. And so what I can actually do is I can click on any little square here, copy it, and paste it into a new little block section and make a new block out of it. So you can edit things on the 8x8 level. So anyway, so that's an important page. Basically, you need to have a block in this window if you want to use this window right here. Okay, so this is the window to place blocks into your level, and then the other window, this is how you edit the properties of blocks. Okay, so the next window that we're going to be looking at, or the next button, is called background. So as you can see here, my background is completely blank. Okay, this is a completely blank background, but there's the foreground and then there's the background. So this basically allows you to edit the background, and I have deleted my background, so there's no background in my game. Now in Super Mario World there is a overworld editor. So here's the overworld editor, okay, and you could do all kinds of wonderful things. And here in my game I'm not using the overworld at all, so this is completely irrelevant to me. But I mean, I guess if you're making a game engine, you could include maybe an overworld editor or something. I don't know. You know, it's depends on what kind of game you're making. In my game, I don't do that. So if you click now on the star here, you can get this wonderful thing that basically shows all of the palettes, all the colors in the level. Okay. So the first top 8 rows, those are the colors for the sprites, and the bottom rows, those, I'm sorry, I mixed that up. The first 8 rows are for the blocks and tiles. The second 8 rows are for the sprites. Okay? And what's so cool about this is that this palette editor, it's specific to each individual level. So I can have a certain configuration right here for level 1, and then on level 2 I can have a completely different configuration. And again, you can save your palettes as files. So if you really liked one palette or whatever, you can just save it as a file, an external file, and store that or pull from it later or whatever. It's really nice because you might mess up your colors one day or something, and then you go and pull your file, and then all of a sudden your palettes are restored. So anyway, so the next option is the zoom option. Okay, so if you click the zoom, I can zoom 200%. Of course, I just messed up everything on this camera. Okay, so with the zoom button, you can go from 100%, 200%, 300%, 400%, 600, 800. You can get really close in here. So I mean, you know, this is just a 16 by 16 pixel block, but it's absolutely humongous right now. So I cannot tell you how good the zoom feature is. Also, one feature about Lunar Magic that is probably the best feature I've ever seen ever in my entire life are these 2 buttons right here. Okay, this is undo and redo. So if you are dragging stuff like blocks or sprites, if you're dragging and dropping them all over your level, you can undo or redo a move. I can't tell you how amazing that is, because there's even other game editors like Hyrule Magic, and Hyrule Magic does not have an undo and a redo. So once you make changes and stuff, if you didn't like those, you can't just automatically go back to your original unless you had saved a copy. So if I were working on if somebody was building an editor for a game engine, I would really like an undo and a redo option. Okay, so let's move on to some of the other things here. So what these options are is these are extracting the graphics from the ROM and reinserting them. That's what all of these buttons are doing. So all of the graphics are stored in bin files, and basically if you are editing your graphics in bin files, if you want to insert them into your ROM, you just hit these buttons and it automatically does that for you. So for example, here's all of my folders and everything right here. If I go into YYCHR, okay, so here's YYCHR. If I go open, let's see here, that's actually not where I want to go. And that's not where I want to go either. Here we go. Extra graphics. So I have some graphics right here, okay? I can click on a graphic, I can open it in YYCHR, I can then look at my graphics in YYCHR. Okay. And then all I have to do I can do all of my edits in YYCHR, and then all I have to do to import those graphics into the actual game, all I have to do is go up to, where is it? I just have to go up to this, these buttons up here. I think it's the red one. Actually, it's this one. So you insert the graphics into your ROM from YYCHR files through this button. And then we're actually going to talk about this button, the red one. So anyway, so let's look at this red button right here. So basically, when you are creating your levels, basically what you have is you can use, these are your graphics files that you're picking to put into your level. So for example, you know, you saw in YYCHR, a typical graphics file is this big, okay? So anyway, when you are making your level, basically I have 6 of those files. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bin files to pick from, and I get to choose these files for my level that I'm currently on. Now those are for the graphics tiles. Now over down here I have 4 options for my sprite tiles. So basically what Lunar Magic does is it allows you to import different bin files on a per level basis, so you get to use those graphics on each of your levels, and you get to choose which ones you use. Then there's some other stuff. Let's see here. This little button, I think I clicked one of the doors or something. There's ways to connect levels to each other. Okay, you can also do that through blocks though. Like for example, I clicked on this one button and it says, do you want to make this level a water level? So these are just extra options. Do you want this level to be slippery and have those ice physics? Then you have different things like how are you entering the level through a pipe, blah blah blah. So let's see here. What's the next one? These are entrances and exits, because in Mario you go through pipes and stuff. Let's see here. I'm going to click on this little Mario button. So there's different level modes, okay? If I click on this Mario button up here, I'm able to see all of these different level modes, okay? For example, there's 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and what these talk about is whether the level is a vertical level, horizontal level, whether it has layer 1 and layer 2 in it, and other kind of properties like that. So then there's some camera options, which is really nice. So let me see here if I can get this. So then there's some camera options. You can say no vertical scroll. You can say vertical scroll at will, which means that the camera won't follow you until you get really high. You can say no vertical scroll unless you're flying, or you can say no vertical or horizontal scroll. So there's different types of camera settings you can pick. And that's that for that button. So let's see here. There's some other buttons up here. There's some type of memory settings where you can pick different memory settings that somehow are available. Some are better than others. You can turn on or off something called sprite buoyancy. It's how if sprites interact with water or not. Then there's something called what? Then there's some other kind of options here. They have to do with scrolling. I'm not really sure about them. Then there's some layer 3 stuff, because there's a couple layer 3 things in Mario World. You can pick just the various options that you have, like high tides, low tides. Those are just very specific things to Super Mario World. You can change the, yeah, that's the layer 3. You can change the music. Okay, in Mario, there's time settings for every level. You can change the time, but you can also change the music and pick which music you want to hear. And then at the very end over here, there are some animation buttons where you can pick tiles and you can animate them. So if you want custom animation in your level, just pick which graphics tiles you want and pick how many frames you want and whatever. And then all of a sudden you got animation. And that's pretty much it for this level editor. So let me see here. So is there anything else I can say? So me as a video game designer, I just want to see my levels. I want to be able to drag and drop my sprites and blocks into a level editor and see it all happen. Yeah, so if you could make a level editor that has all of these different properties, great. The other thing is, and so you can save your level at any time. The other thing is that you can flip through your levels. Like for example, this is one level. It's asking me to save. This is another level. So I can flip through all of these various levels whenever I want to. Anyway, so that's my brief summary of Lunar Magic. And so here's the thing. Lunar Magic, it only does so much, okay? But in Super Mario World hacking, there's other programs that are independent of Lunar Magic that you also use. For example, there's a program called Uber ASM where basically you can write custom ASM codes and you can insert them on a per level basis. There's also an HDMA code generator so that you can generate HDMA effects and then insert them on a per level basis. There is a sprite inserter and a custom block inserter that you can insert custom blocks and custom sprites into your into Lunar Magic. And then there's some other ones too. There's all kinds of little external programs that basically add, they do what Lunar Magic does not do. And so if you were to make a level editor, also make the level editor such that you can easily share resources between one person and another. If I coded a certain block, okay, or a certain tile, I should be able to give that to my friend and he should be able to use that in his game and he should be able to use that too. If he codes a sprite and he gives it to me, I should be able to put that in my game. So if you could make the compatibility really nice like that, then just make a website and anybody can upload their custom codes and custom blocks and custom sprites, and then basically it makes video game making very, very easy. Anyway, so there is my introduction to Lunar Magic. Hopefully that helps. So there you go.